Okay, let's break this down. You've got a former prime minister, a death sentence, and an official demand that's putting two neighboring countries on a diplomatic collision course. We're going to get into the incredibly tricky situation playing out right now between India and Bangladesh.
And this is the fundamental question, the tightrope that India is walking. There are absolutely no easy answers here. Every single move they could make is loaded with huge geopolitical consequences.
So at the very center of all this, you have three core things: Sheikh Hasina, the powerful former leader of Bangladesh, the death sentence that's hanging over her head, and, of course, the formal demand for India to send her back. Right, so how in the world did we get to this point? Let's walk through the events that really set off this international firestorm. This is where things really kicked into high gear. The new interim government in Dhaka made its move. They sent a formal demand to India, where Hasina had fled, saying, you need to extradite her so she can face justice.
And we're not talking about minor charges here. They are as serious as it gets. A special court in Bangladesh found her guilty of genocide. They said she had command responsibility during a really deadly crackdown on student protests back in 2024. And that verdict is the whole legal foundation for this extradition request.
Okay, so let's dig into Bangladesh's side of this. Because they're not just asking nicely. They're making the case that India doesn't really have a choice here.
From Dhaka's point of view, this is pretty black and white. They're pointing to the extradition treaty that the two countries have and basically saying this creates a compulsory obligation. In their eyes, India has to comply, especially when the charges are this grave. And you know, they're not mincing words. This quote right here is a very clear warning. It's basically a diplomatic threat that says, if you protect Hasina, we're going to see it as an unfriendly act. The stakes could not be higher. But of course, there's a completely different story coming from Sheikh Hasina's camp. They're not just defending what she did. They're going on the attack, questioning the entire legal process against her. Hasina's defense strategy is to completely reject the court's authority. She's calling the verdict a sham, arguing that the whole trial was nothing more than a political witch hunt by a government that wasn't even elected. Now, this is a really crucial point. Her side isn't saying that nothing bad happened. She's actually acknowledging that mistakes were made by the security forces. But she's reframing it, saying it wasn't a pre-planned genocide, but a chaotic and flawed response to a huge uprising. And here is her big geopolitical card to play. She's talking directly to India's biggest fears. She's warning New Delhi that if they don't back her, this new government in Dhaka could turn Bangladesh into a Pakistan-style hybrid regime. That's a huge security red flag for India, which is terrified of instability on its eastern border. Which brings us right back to India, caught in the middle of this massive tug of war, trying to balance its legal duties, its diplomatic relationships, and its own national security. So what is India saying publicly? Well, not a whole lot, and that's by design. The official statement is a masterclass in saying nothing specific, using careful language about supporting the people of Bangladesh without taking any real stance on the extradition itself. So you might be wondering, if Bangladesh says the treaty makes this mandatory, what's the holdup? Well, it all comes down to a really important bit of legal wiggle room in international law. And this right here is the whole ballgame. It's called the Political Offence exception. It's a clause you find in a lot of these treaties, and it basically says a country can refuse to extradite someone if it decides the crime they're accused of is fundamentally political, not criminal. This could be India's way out. This slide lays out this central conflict perfectly. On one side, you have Bangladesh saying these are crimes against humanity, which makes extradition a must. On the other side, Hasina's defense is screaming that this is a political offense, which would give India the right to say no. At the end of the day, India's decision will all come down to which of these two definitions they choose to accept. So let's zoom out for a second, because this decision isn't just going to be made in a courtroom based on legal terms. It's about the much, much bigger game of power and stability in the entire region. So what should you take away from all this? First, India is stuck between a rock and a hard place. Follow the treaty or protect an ally who has historically been very friendly to them. Second, that legal loophole, the political offense clause, is where the whole argument is going to happen. And finally, and maybe most importantly, this choice isn't just legal, it's deeply strategic. It could change the security of the whole region. And you can actually see this thinking when you read between the lines of India's official statement. When they use words like peace and stability, it's a clear signal that they are looking way beyond the legal text and thinking about these huge strategic consequences. Really, this whole messy situation forces us to ask a fundamental question. When a country's legal duties clash head-on with its own strategic interests, what wins? Is it the letter of the law that matters most? Or does the raw reality of power politics always get the final say?